Well, hello there, and thank you so much for joining us today for 5 ways to use science to teach social emotional learning. My name is Dawn, and I'm the Teacher Programs Manager here at the Van Andel Institute for Education, and with me is John Osterman. Hi, John.
Hello, Don. How are you?
I'm great. So John is our teacher. He works with our students in our student programming, and maybe share just a little bit of what we do here at the Institute with our students.
Yeah, sure. So I get to work with kindergarten through 12th grade students in various field trips and after school programs, all STEM related fields. And in addition to that, we do summer camps and all sorts of fun things where we get to try out some of the great things we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. So we work with students here in our facility, and we work in classrooms outside of our building here and also across the country, just kind of bringing that science inquiry, but really more importantly, that those curious thinkers, those critical and creative thinkers in the classroom. And that's really our mission. And today we want to share with you some strategies and resources to bring that social emotional learning into your science lessons. So all of the strategies, resources that John and I are sharing with you are in that handout there, which I believe Robin has put in the chat box now. And speaking of Robin, hey Robin, how you doing?
Hi guys, doing good. Thanks all for joining us today.
Excellent. Robin is our behind the scenes expert. So if you run into any issue or you have a question, feel free to reach out to her in that question box in your webinar panel. So today's webinar is brought to you by Blue Apple Projects. These are project-based learning units that engage students. They teach the content you need to teach, all while making the world a better place. And talk about social awareness. These projects have it all. They have everything you need to bring project-based learning, meaningful, purposeful learning to life in your classroom. And because you're watching this webinar live or recorded, you can save 10% on your next Blue Apple project using the coupon code webinar at blueappleteacher.org. Okay, so before we jump into our content for today, Robin is going to launch a poll, and John and I are interested to find out what grade levels do we have represented on our webinar this afternoon. Just give you a few seconds to make your selections, and Robin, when it seems to be slowing down, if you want to go ahead and shut that off and kind of give us those results here.
Sure, let me give it a couple more seconds here as they keep rolling in.
Hey, great.
All right. So we have 78% middle school, followed by 22% upper L and high school.
Okay.
And then 11% admin or other, and then 6% early L.
Okay, fantastic. And I know that when we marketed this out, we put K-8, and I'm really excited to also see that we've got some high school teachers on the line as well. And just to let you know, the lessons that we're going to share are more aligned to K-8. However, all the social emotional learning connections are definitely something that's applicable to the grade levels that you teach. So thank you again for joining us this evening. Okay, so our road ahead, our agenda for our time together is going to be very fast paced, and we're going to very quickly share why it matters. You're here, so obviously this is a very important topic to you. Also share the big 5 core competencies that we use to connect our science lessons to social emotional learning. And then the meat, the bulk of our time is really going to be diving into 5 science inquiry lessons that we've pulled out social emotional connections as well. So let's start with the why it matters. You know, as teachers, we understand the importance of social emotional learning. We knew that prior to the pandemic, but we know that it's been everywhere in the news, just this need for more social emotional learning in schools. And districts and schools have heeded that call and added more intervention and programs into their schools and classrooms. We know that there is research that supports the benefits, the importance of social emotional learning, from academic performance to improving behaviors in the classroom and in social situations. And this is also something that isn't just for elementary. It's something that is definitely K-12, and we see that importance throughout all grade levels in school. If we really want to boil it down to what really truly matters, this statement really says it all. If a child can do advanced math, speak 3 languages, or receive top grades, but can't manage their emotions, practice conflict resolution, or handle stress, none of that other stuff is really going to matter. And if we take a look at the most desired skills for employment, according to the World Economic Forum, all 10 of these skills relate almost directly to either a social or an emotional connection, right? We asked this question of our scientists here at our research institute, right in the heart of the medical mile in downtown Grand Rapids. And these are world-renowned investigators studying cancer, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, other neurodegenerative diseases. And we asked them, what skills are needed to be a successful scientist? This is what we got. And you can see that science knowledge piece is very small compared to these other skills. And as I look at these different skills, I see a lot of habits of mind. I also see the social emotional learning skills, teamwork and collaboration, social awareness, relationship skills. We have attention to detail, perseverance. We're talking about your self-management, responsible decision-making, and self-awareness. So as teachers, we know that these types of skills hold as much value as the content is we need to teach. So how can we get there? How can we start putting more social emotional learning into our lessons? Well, before we dive into those actual lessons, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page about the big 5. And these are the 5 core competencies that we use to align our science lessons to social emotional learning. This is from the CASEL standards, and many of you on the line may be very familiar with them. Maybe you use them, maybe use something like them. So I'm going to go through these very quickly, but just so we have a frame of reference as we talk about our lessons. So if we take a look at self-awareness, we don't want our students to be self-aware. We want them to be able to understand and recognize their thoughts, their feelings themselves. And so we're looking at qualities where they can recognize their strengths. They have a solid self-perception and they're self-confident. We want our students to be able to manage their thoughts, their behaviors, their emotions, but also their work. So in self-management, we really want to look at impulse control, stress management, and organizational skills. Social awareness, we're looking for our students to really think outside themselves and value diversity, be empathetic, and be able to take perspective, take a stand, but also have an open mind and listen to other people's perspectives as well. Relationship skills are important for teamwork, for collaboration, to be a good communicator, and also to be able to engage appropriately in social situations. And finally, we want responsible decision makers. And we want our students to be able to identify, solve problems, analyze situations, and be able to reflect on their decisions so they can use that information to move forward. So that was a very quick kind of summary of those big 5 core competencies. And so John and I are curious, Robin's going to put a poll up here. Which of those 5 do you want to integrate more into your lessons? And you can pick as many as you want. And while you're doing that, John, I'm curious, what about you? What are those core competencies that you'd like to maybe integrate more into your work with students?
Yeah, so with some of the students I've been working with lately, it's been self-awareness and self-management have definitely bubbled to the top. Trying to get students to be able to direct themselves through the different investigations we have going on and really recognize their own strengths and capabilities in order to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That self-management piece is definitely a skill that is not innate. It's something that needs to be intentionally taught as well. So yeah, good, excellent. Okay, Robin, what do we have for our poll results?
All right. So at the top, at 58%, we have relationship skills.
Okay.
Followed by responsible decision making and self-management at 53%. Then we have 37% self-awareness and 32% social awareness.
Okay, well, fantastic, excellent, thank you. All right, so now before we dive into our first lesson, I just wanted to throw out this disclaimer. We are not outlining a district or school-wide social emotional learning program. There's incredible programs out there, and maybe you are using one right now in your school. But we will be sharing very practical and powerful ways that you can bring SEL into your science lessons. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn things over to John to start us off with our first lesson.
Awesome, thank you, Dawn. So here we go. So our first lesson is one that I've done a number of times. It's a really fun one called balloon rockets, or I took this from NASA. It's in the hyperdoc, as Dawn mentioned, if you want to take a look at it later, but it's called heavy lifting. And the goal is for students to design a balloon rocket, as you can see in the picture there, that can carry a maximum payload up to space, or to our ceiling in this case. So with this 4th and 5th grade lesson, the students are really engaging in the engineering and design cycle. And so as they were working, collaboration is a huge piece of this. And not only collaborating in terms of planning and coming up with different ideas, but there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen between kids here too. When you talk about blowing up a balloon, attaching things to that balloon, getting it onto a string, there's a lot of hands involved. So as I saw the kids working, just saw a lot of good teamwork and some examples of teamwork that could use some improvements. So we took a pause and we spent a little bit of time talking about what collaboration looks like to help build our relationship skills and help to know together and have a foundation together of what relationship skills look like in a collaborative environment. So you can see the Y chart is what we use to kind of foster that conversation. In this example, I was in front of the class kind of facilitating the conversation. And I just asked the kids, what does it look like, sound like, and feel like? And this took us about 10 minutes. But you can see it from some of my notes there. We had a really rich conversation. One of my favorite things that one of the students said was, collaboration sounds like organized chaos that works out. and I just thought that was like really cool, because when I'm listening to all of these kids, that's kind of what I hear. And you can hear, we talked about how you could hear when it wasn't working out, right? That turned. There's a great opportunity here to talk about what collaboration doesn't look like. And when that was brought up by the kids, we reflected on what's the opposite of that, right? What should it look like? We took things kids would say it looks like teamwork, and we dove deeper into that. Well, teamwork's another word for collaboration. How can we define that a little bit more? We got things like putting in effort, adapting and planning. And so this just really rich conversation, I felt like, gave us the foundation to move forward and to continue to try this activity with a new frame of reference of what that collaborative environment looks like.
I love this example because you did the balloon rockets, and this wasn't something that was necessarily planned in your lesson at the time when you did the balloon rockets, but you realized as you were going through that, maybe we need to take a step back and really explore what it means to be a good collaborator, and to define that in a way that makes sense to the students you're working with. So it was just very powerful. Excellent. Okay, and as John mentioned, the link to this actual investigation is in the hyperdoc, then also this Y chart too, so a link to that. So if that's something you'd like to use, feel free to take that and make that work for you. And any of those relationship skills or any skills you want to do, a Y chart's a great strategy to use that. Okay, so the next investigation, and John, feel free to jump in too here, because this is one that we've done quite a bit with the students, both here, but then also outside into other classrooms. And it's a series of investigations. It's actually more of a sustained inquiry, where the students are learning first how to light the bulb through a science inquiry investigation. They run through our scientific model, and at the end, they're learning how to light a bulb. They've discovered it on their own, and they have then put together an explanation, a claim, evidence, and reasoning to show their learning. Well, we don't stop there. We take that and we want to put that in a more relevant real life situation. So we create this scenario where the power has gone out and they are challenged now to design and build a flashlight using their knowledge of circuits. And so in our lights out experience, the students are taking all that information and they're building the flashlight, but they have to go through the engineering design process, which is a very iterative process. And sometimes the students could get a little bit tripped up in the steps, and making sure that they are understanding too the criteria and the constraints for this challenge. So they use that criteria and constraints to design and to build and to eventually test their design. And they use this evaluation rubric that's reflective of the criteria that their flashlight has to work within. And they decide if they want to eliminate or refine this. And if they want to eliminate, they're starting back over and designing a whole new flashlight. If they want to refine, they're just making some tweaks. So it is this whole series of investigations, from the light the bulb now to this engineering challenge, is a very self-directed type of investigation. And if you don't have hours of time to work in science, we know that sometimes that's a challenge, especially in the elementary level, to devote more than 30 to 45 minutes of time in science, that it can be a challenge with that self-direction and trying to figure out, where am I at, what do I need to do in this process. So what we found with working with our students, and we've done this with both elementary and middle school students, is that these work logs work really great for any longer term or more sustained type of inquiry investigation. And so what we did was, we identified what are those major investigation tasks that they need to accomplish. And at first we started off with a checklist, but as John can attest, we found out right away that doing just a checklist isn't as effective, because a lot of times the students will think they're done, but they're not quite. And so we need to really qualify what each one of those tasks means. So for example, you see the second one down, brainstorm ideas on how to build a flashlight using criteria and constraints. Well, in order to show that they've done that, they need to make sure that they have their final design picture in their journal. Right? So those are the pieces that they have to be able to show that they've accomplished that. And then also the due dates to help them keep track. So this is a great self-management tool for students. This is something you can create and give to them, and we have the templates in there you can use, or you can complete it together. Or eventually, if your students are at a point where they understand the process and they know all the different parts they need to get done, they can create it themselves as well. But it's also a bonus for you, because this helps when students are absent, and if they've missed a day or two and they're not quite sure where they left off, this helps guide them. And so it makes that whole process a lot easier too. So that's our lights out experiment.
Yeah, I love that one, Dawn, that it takes the next level from just a checklist, like you said, that there's some tangible outcomes that we can see. So awesome. So the next one we're going to talk about is our mystery powders activity. So this is an inquiry-based investigation where students are investigating the question, what substance is my mystery powder? So they're given 6 known substances, 6 known powders, and they have to go through and in this guided inquiry, they're given some procedures to follow, but they're really self-directed in trying to make observations and find ways to identify the differences between these 6 known powders, their physical and chemical properties, in order to identify eventually a known one. So there's a lot of details here, a lot of decisions that have to be made intentionally as the students go through this activity with those step-by-step instructions. And as we all know, scientists need to be able to communicate their process, and they need to be able to follow that process in order to obtain accurate results and results we can rely upon. So there's a lot of responsible decision making that ties into this. I see all the time kids tend to get a little bit lazy with the following of some of these step-by-step things throughout the investigation, because they think they know what they're doing, and so we came up with a rubric here to help them think about the different details that they have to adhere to as they go through these step-by-step investigations. And at the end, when they write a claim, evidence, and reasoning, what we're really trying to have them do is think about how their choices throughout this investigation impact the quality of their results. So, for example, did they label each container, the second row down there, did they label them all very carefully and make sure they knew which powder they were testing when? Did they use clean containers for each test? Did they use sterile pipettes or other things to make sure they don't have any crossover of powders or substances that might throw off or skew their results? And then when they're writing that claim, evidence, and reasoning, they can use their evaluation here of the decisions they made throughout this investigation to really support whether the observations and the data they have collected can be relied upon, or if they think, it might be worth going back through and collecting this data a little bit more carefully. So I love at the very end of this, then it's what would you do differently next time? And maybe you have time for a next time, maybe you don't have time for a next time, but they can still think through how these decisions impact the results of any scientific investigation, but in this case, our mystery powders investigation. So just a really great tool for students to think about the impacts of their choices.
Yeah, no, I love this. In the claim, evidence, and reasoning part, one of the areas that I know that I've seen students struggle in with the reasoning, and they're bringing in basically two parts in the reasoning. They're bringing in their process that they went through. Is it a fair test? Why or why not? And then also that the science that connects to their evidence and claim. But that whole fair test piece, I can't tell you how many times where students will just write, I conducted a fair test. Well, how do you know? And this actually outlines it very specifically on how they evaluated. They can actually see, did they follow these procedures to make sure it was a fair test? So they're getting results that are accurate. So I love it. I love this. Great tool. Okay, our next lesson is actually, this is another sustained inquiry lesson, and it's actually a Blue Apple project, or What's in Your Water PBL unit. And the example I wanted to share with you here on the screen, this is a 1-week summer camp that we did where the students not only learned about water and everything about water, but they learned it for a purpose. They learned how to fix a pipeline. They engineered a design to fix a pipeline, to clean up an oil spill, to make a watershed. Collected water samples here at the Grand River in downtown Grand Rapids, and they brought them back to the lab and analyzed them. They tested the water quality. They found macroinvertebrates. But again, it didn't stop there, because they used that understanding of water and they researched water-related issues, okay, bringing in that social awareness piece, but then to do something about it. And in this group, they also connected with industry experts. So people in the water environmental quality field came in and talked to the students. And then they created PSAs, public service announcements, about water and about the need for the clean water or conservation of water. Other schools that we've worked with have hosted a share fair at the end of this and brought families in to learn more about water and water problems and bring awareness to the issues. And then some schools have also done fundraisers to raise money for a water charity of their choice. So that's project-based learning is just ripe for social awareness, for having students think outside themselves and really connect the content they're learning to something bigger outside of the classroom. And so I want to share with you a video here. And this is actually a 4th grade classroom out of Hamilton, Michigan. And they went through the What's in Your Water project. I'd love for you to see this in action. So here we go. All right, so that was an example of that project-based learning unit in action, and you could see that social awareness piece very clearly in that real-world impact, but then you could also see some of the other social emotional skills, such as like relationship skills as well. So that was our What's in Your Water. Again, everything is linked in the hyperdoc for you to take a look at, and John's gonna go ahead and share our last lesson here.
Awesome. Yeah, so the last one we got is this one's called Amazing Spheros. And so the core content here is really coding, programming, and robotics here. So in our case, we get to use Spheros, and the students are programming different Spheros in order to navigate through a maze effectively. They kind of learn the basics of the programming. They make a square and a triangle, different shapes with the Sphero, and then they apply that to try and make the robot navigate through the maze as fast as possible. So they get an introduction. We've done this with kindergarten all the way through middle school. It could be done with high school too. Programming is one of those things where you get one wrong block or one wrong line of code and the whole thing just shuts down and doesn't work. So this was a really great opportunity, this particular activity, to have kids thinking about self-awareness, to get them thinking about their thinking. But in this case, I didn't want them just to think about their strengths and weaknesses, but I wanted them to think about their mindset as they go through this, right? It can be a frustrating task, and it can be hard to figure out what's wrong in your code or why it won't do what you think it's gonna do. So adding one word to a phrase of I can't do this, and just adding on the end the yet. So in order to emphasize that, we came up with another simple rubric. This one could be displayed in front of the classroom. It could be a personal sheet that the students are recording on, where they all start in the not yet column. And again, emphasizing that yet. They'll all be able to do this by the end of this, and switching from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset in this case. And so you can see the tasks that we have outlined there. I can create a square with my Sphero. I can create a triangle with my Sphero. So the students get to move their name either in front of the classroom or on their own sheet, wherever they are at. They're almost there. They're not yet there. Or they've done it. Yes, they've completed that challenge. And I love this because the students can actually move past one task to the next as well, and return to that. Maybe once they figure out a circle, they'll now have the skills to go back and figure out the triangle if that was a pain point for them. So just a really great tool for kids to see how they're progressing, and to keep in mind that it's not necessarily about the end goal here. It's about trying and about persevering through that difficult situation. So the power of yet, and I like this as a reminder for myself too, to keep that word in my vocabulary as I'm working with and encouraging these students to keep trying at this programming challenge.
Awesome.
So with that, yeah, those are our 5 lessons, our 5 SEL activities that can be incorporated here. So I think, Dawn, did we want to give a quick survey, or did we want to move right to
I think we probably, just because of time, we'll probably want to run to the end. So
makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. So just to let you know, we do have some bonus anytime SEL strategies. We've got dozens of those. You can use any content, any grade level. It's in the hyperdoc. We also highlighted our favorite 5 in there too. We'd love for you to keep the conversation going, connect with us. Feel free to share this with your administrator, a colleague, or peer. And please join us next month. I'm very intrigued by this one. Super excited about keeping kids weird and learning all about that. We've got some great content, I'm sure, to make that very engaging. And last of all, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do every day. And John and I are just thrilled to have everyone on today. And because of that, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to win one of our project-based learning units to help with those social emotional skills. And so if you want to put your name in that, a survey will pop up here as soon as the webinar ends. Very quick survey, give us some really good feedback, and we'll pick 3 winners, and the drawing will be this Friday, and we will announce that on Friday. So thank you again very much, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.